before we started doing the show, he said, "Don't you want to come and do this show?" I said, "Sure." I learned more about Jack than I ever did when he was living at home.
He doesn't apologize for the chaos. He doesn't explain the madness. Ozzy Osbourne simply screams, and the world listens.
Ashes where the body's burning.
For over 50 years, his voice has carried the weight of darkness. There are cleaner singers, prettier voices, but none sound like pure emotion unleashed. None make pain sound so powerful. He was the voice of the forgotten, the factory kid who refused to stay quiet.
It's not a job, it's a passion, what we do. People work.
When the world told him to behave, he got louder. When they called him crazy, he embraced it. When they said metal would never last, he proved them wrong with every song. But hidden inside all that wildness, all that rebellion, are moments of pure truth. Songs that saved him from himself. Ozzy remembers which tracks felt like freedom when everything else felt like chains. Which ones gave voice to feelings he couldn't put into words. He screamed thousands of songs, touched millions of broken souls. But only 5 Black Sabbath tracks stayed closest to his heart. These are Ozzy's favorites from the band that invented heavy metal. The songs that turned a Birmingham factory worker into the Prince of Darkness. Before the bats, before the madness, before it all became legend. These songs still make him feel alive. The madman has chosen his masterpieces. 5. Paranoid Madness has a sound.
I can see the things that make true happiness. I'm a
And it only takes 2.5 minutes. Paranoid wasn't supposed to be anything special. The band had finished recording their album and needed one more song. They had 20 minutes left in the studio.
A lot of bitterness on both parts, but I've got to be truthful to you. He's one of the greatest all-time riffs.
Tony Iommi played a riff, and Ozzy started singing whatever came into his head. What came out changed everything. The lyrics were a stream of consciousness, pure emotion without a filter. Ozzy sang about feeling trapped, feeling crazy, feeling like the world was closing in. He wasn't trying to be poetic or clever. He was just being honest about what it felt like inside his head. The panic, the confusion, the desperate need to escape. The music matched the madness perfectly. Fast, urgent, relentless. Tony's guitar buzzed like angry bees. Geezer's bass thundered like a racing heartbeat. Bill's drums pounded like someone running for their life. Together, they created the sound of anxiety turned into art. Recording it felt like catching lightning. 1 take, maybe 2. No time to overthink or polish, just raw energy captured on tape. "We were just 4 kids making noise," Ozzy said later. But sometimes noise is exactly what the world needs to hear. The song became their biggest hit. Radio stations played it constantly. Kids who felt like outsiders finally had an anthem. People dealing with mental health struggles heard someone who understood. Ozzy had accidentally written the perfect soundtrack for feeling lost and alone. Live performances were pure chaos. Audiences went wild from the first note. They screamed along to every word, releasing their own frustrations and fears. Ozzy watched thousands of people find their voice through his madness. The broken singing to the broken. For Ozzy, Paranoid represents honest expression without shame. How the quickest songs sometimes cut the deepest. How admitting you're not okay can be the most powerful thing you do. Sometimes, madness makes perfect sense. 4. Sweet Leaf. Some love songs are about people. This one was about escape. Sweet Leaf started with a cough. Ozzy had been smoking before they recorded, and when Tony played that heavy, slow riff, the cough just happened. They kept it in because it felt honest. Real. Like the song was already showing you what it was about before the first word was sung.
Yeah.
Lots of swear buttons would come out at me.
Yeah.
The riff was different from everything else Sabbath had done. Slower, heavier, like molasses made of metal. It didn't rush anywhere, didn't try to impress with speed. It just sat there, thick and powerful, like smoke hanging in the air. Tony had found a new way to be heavy without being fast. Ozzy's lyrics were a love letter to marijuana. But it wasn't glamorizing drugs. It was being honest about needing something to cope. He sang about finding peace in a world that felt too harsh, about needing help to quiet the noise in his head. For a working-class kid from Birmingham, this was therapy he could afford. The song became controversial immediately. Parents' groups complained and radio stations banned it. But kids understood what Ozzy was really singing about: the need to escape, to find something that made the world bearable. Whether it was substances or music or anything that helped you survive another day. Recording sessions were relaxed for once. The band took their time, letting the song breathe. They added layers slowly, building a wall of sound that felt comfortable and safe. It was the first time we didn't sound angry, Ozzy remembered. We sounded human. Live performances were spiritual experiences. The audience swayed instead of moshed. Lighters came out, creating tiny stars in the darkness. Ozzy sang it like a prayer, slow and meaningful. Everyone in the room felt understood. For Ozzy, Sweet Leaf represents finding peace in chaos. How sometimes the things that help you cope become the things you need to sing about. How honesty about struggle can help others feel less alone. 3. Children of the Grave. The future belongs to the young. But what if that future is darkness? Children of the Grave wasn't just another heavy song. It was Ozzy's warning to the world.
Various factory buildings. I couldn't hold the job down. I got bored, you know. It's not fast enough for me.
A message about what happens when you ignore the next generation. When you leave them nothing but war and hate and broken promises. The children were angry, and Ozzy was their voice. The song came from watching the world fall apart. Vietnam was raging. Protests were everywhere. Young people were dying for causes they didn't understand. Ozzy saw kids his age being sent to fight wars started by old men. He saw a generation being sacrificed for politics and power. Someone had to speak up for them. Tony's riff was like a battle cry, heavy, driving, unstoppable. It marched forward like an army of the forgotten. Geezer's bass line crawled underneath like something rising from underground. Bill's drums pounded like the heartbeat of revolution. Together, they created the sound of youth refusing to stay quiet anymore. Ozzy's vocals were part warning, part prophecy. He sang about children rising up, about the innocent becoming dangerous when pushed too far. His voice cracked with emotion, raw with anger. This wasn't performance. This was testimony. He was speaking for everyone who felt abandoned by the adult world. The lyrics painted pictures of the apocalypse. But it wasn't fantasy. It was fear made real. Ozzy could see where society was heading if nothing changed. If the powerful kept ignoring the powerless. If the old kept sacrificing the young for their mistakes. The grave wasn't just a metaphor. It was a destination. Recording it felt like documenting history. The band knew they were capturing something important, something that needed to be said. The energy in the studio was electric, dangerous. Everyone could feel they were making more than music. They were making a statement that would outlast them all. Live performances became rallies. Audiences didn't just listen, they participated. They raised their fists, they screamed along, they felt their power as a generation. Ozzy watched kids find their voice through his words. The children weren't just listening, they were rising. For Ozzy, Children of the Grave represents speaking truth to power. How the heaviest music can carry the most important messages. How sometimes the young have to save themselves. 2. Iron Man heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they carry the weight of the world. Iron Man wasn't born from comic books, though everyone thinks it was. It came from something darker, something more real. Tony Iommi played that legendary riff, and Ozzy heard a story about a man who tried to save humanity but got punished for it. A hero who became a monster because nobody understood him. The riff itself was pure genius, simple but devastating. 4 notes that changed everything. Tony didn't need to show off or play fast. He just found the heaviest sound possible and let it crush everything in its path. When people think of heavy metal, this is what they hear in their heads. This is the blueprint for power. Ozzy's story was about transformation gone wrong. A man travels through time, sees the apocalypse, comes back to warn everyone. But the time travel turns him into metal, making him unable to speak. Nobody listens to his warnings, so he becomes the very destroyer he tried to prevent. It's the ultimate tragedy, wrapped in the ultimate riff. The lyrics were simple but powerful. Ozzy didn't need fancy words or complicated metaphors. He just told the story straight, like a narrator describing the end of the world. His voice carried the weight of prophecy, the sadness of someone who knows what's coming but can't stop it. Every word felt inevitable. Recording it was like capturing thunder. The band knew immediately they had something special. The riff was so heavy it seemed to bend reality around it. Ozzy's vocals floated over the top like a ghost telling the future. Everything locked together perfectly, like pieces of a machine designed to destroy.